You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll meet a persuasive doppelganger in FAB Facts.
We're making a very surreal supply run in the Randomiser.
plus many more memories from master model maker Mr. David Tremont.
That's all coming up in Pod 104
of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Well, welcome one, welcome all.
Yes.
Welcome Richard James.
Welcome Jamie Anderson.
Thank you. This is the Gerry Anderson Podcast, Pod 104.
Yeah.
Sorry, 104.
Or
not
104.
Okay, fine.
We're going to get tied in knots again, aren't we? Be back to binary before we know it.
Please, no more binary.
Fair enough.
Since you always do, I'm going to give you a little break.
Oh.
This is the Gerry Anderson Podcast. We talk about all things Gerry Anderson for about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of exciting things coming up. First up, you'll be getting a lovely, healthy dose of FAB Facts, which I'm sure you're all very excited about. I can see Richard certainly is.
Yes, one of your 5 a day.
We'll have a bit of Gerry Anderson news, including a little apology from me for something.
Right. What have you done
Sorry
now?
about that. Don't worry too much.
Okay.
We've got the Randomiser from the marvellous Chris Randomiser Dale himself.
Yes.
That'll be coming up at the very end of this podcast. And in between those things, you'll also find some messages from around the Podsteron universe, from our lovely listeners, from across Twitter, Facebook and email. And of course, the thing you're all looking forward to the most of all, it's part 2 of our interview with David Tremont, master model maker from Weta Workshop. Have I missed anything out, Richard?
Well, I mean, Jamie, I'm starting to wonder, what do I bring to the party? This has been a real wake-up moment for me. Why am I even kind of here, really?
Without you, there will be no professionalism, there will be no comedy relief.
Oh, I see.
And there will be no one to, keep me in check.
Fair enough. No, that's a very important job. You're right.
Yeah, and also, there will be nobody to curate and report on messages from around the Podsteron universe.
That's true. And there'd also be no one to say, don't forget to subscribe to us on whichever channel you're listening to us on, so you get a notification every time a new episode drops. You can also leave us a nice rating, and you can share us with your friends so they can get to hear us too. Hashtag us on Twitter, hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard and James, and we'll see your tweets, and join our Podsteron group on Facebook and join in the fun. There.
You should also tag Chris Dale, at Chris Dalek. Of
course. Yes, that's right. Why do I never mention that?
I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? You just went into a pattern.
Yeah, and I think it's because, obviously, when we do this podcast, I can see you, and you are sort of like a visual prompt for me, aren't you? That's why you're here. You're my visual prompt.
We need a visual prompt of Chris Dale.
Yeah. Do we have a cardboard cutout of Chris Dale?
Let's get one.
Right.
I'll put one on order right now.
You're on.
Okay, while I do that, let's hear from Mark Silk as he introduces this week's FAB Facts.
Hello, Mark.
Now, time for this week's FAB Facts.
Isn't it lovely to hear from Mark Silk?
Yes, nice. He's looking well, isn't he? Thanks for coming, Mark. Yeah, good to see you every week.
Cheers, Mark. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing he turns up just to say that every single week.
Well, he's a professional, isn't he, you see? And he needs to work.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, this is FAB Facts. Mm-hmm. I've got a book of FAB Facts. I'm going to flick through the book of FAB Facts. You're going to shout FAB, and then it'll stop me on a random page, and I'll deliver a FAB Fact from that page. Are you ready to flick and say FAB?
Always ready.
Then here we go.
FAB!
Hey?
What?
Richard.
Yes.
Well, we're going to cross out of the Gerry Anderson universe a bit here.
Are we?
And then cross back in again. Sort of. Maybe. But all will become clear as mud.
So. Yeah.
Shortly. Mm-hmm. So ITC, Richard, you know ITC.
Yes.
A very successful partnership with them and Dad, with Lou Grade and Dad. Many of the Anderson shows that you know and love were funded Thunderbirds, for example, Stingray, FAB XL5, Space 1999, UFO, all that entire period, really. But ITC's support for what is now regarded as quality cult TV goes far beyond Anderson stuff into shows like The Saint, Danger Man, The Prisoner, and others. One of those others was 1971's The Persuaders.
Oh, yes.
You know that one with Roger Moore and Tony Curtis.
Of course.
All that sort of stuff. Anyway, so their characters were brought together by a retired judge, Judge Fulton. And evidently, Judge Fulton had a previous association with a certain Gerry Anderson organisation.
Oh, really?
Yes, really.
Do tell.
Well, about halfway through the first episode of the series, you see the judge skimming through a folder which contains 2 letters typed on Eurosec branded paper. Eurosec, of course, being the European Space Exploration Complex, which was the organisation from Doppelganger.
Yes.
Dad's 1969 live-action movie. Not only that, but if you watch the Blu-ray and do a screen grab, it is possible to read those letters.
Oh, great.
Now, they're both in fact the same letter.
Right.
It's just that one's upside down. But the letter is from John Kane. That was the character played by Ian Hendry, and it's his resignation letter sent to Jason Webb, played by Patrick Wymark, as seen in the film.
I see, okay.
That letter reads, Dear Jason, as a result of the decision made by the Eurosec Council at the meeting today, I have decided to resign as project director. Since I no longer have a project to direct, it seems pointless to continue here. I will, of course, honour the terms of my agreement. Regretfully, John Kane.
Nice.
And the only difference between the letter seen in the film and the 2 copies on Judge Fulton's folder in The Persuaders is that Kane seems to have actually signed the one in the film.
Right.
But these ones are unsigned. So how did Judge Fulton come to have a copy of John Kane's resignation letter, Richard?
Yeah.
Well, basically, someone at Pinewood went, we need a letter prop. Here's some old tat we've got. Yeah, put them in.
That's right.
So that's probably the reason. But since it's so clear, I think we can possibly link Doppelganger and The Persuaders, saying that they take place in the same universe.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah.
Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. Yes, I like that. I like tying things together like that. That's very nice. Yeah.
I mean, that is a seriously geeky fact.
Well, now, which eagle-eyed viewer spotted that first, then?
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
This particular fab fact, I must say, is thanks to the eagle-eyed Chris Randomiser Dale, which
that explains it. I see.
Yes, he's written this one.
Yes.
And it's really Chris's suggestion that these things happen in the same universe. But
yeah, I like
it's a nice thing to imagine, isn't it?
Yes. I remember we used to have reams and reams of paper on the station house set in Space Precinct. We used to have to shuffle around from one desk to another of all various colours. I never thought to look. Might have been some gems in there, mightn't there?
There may well have been.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned to you before, when I went into the bank vault, I know that bank vault where there's a famous picture of you in the door sleeping.
Yes.
In there were stacks of credits, Altorian credits, currency of Space Precinct Universe, and I thought, wow, these are amazing, and then was terribly disappointed to find it was just one credit printed and then on a stack of just blank sheets of paper.
Yeah, but
actually
actually
disappointed.
If you'd looked closer at those bits of paper, you would have seen actually they would have been appointments for Martin Landau's wig fittings for Space 1999. So another example of reusing bits of paper from previous series. You see?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Anyway, there you go. Listeners, if you've spotted any other incidences of props being reused from the Gerry Anderson universe outside of the Gerry Anderson universe, do let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. But until then, that brings us to the end of this week's
Paper Fact! There we are, very nice. I like that one. That is interesting, isn't it? All the bits and pieces that are lying around. We've spoken before about things being reused in series. I bet they never thought that there'd be someone out there watching who would go, I know that bit of paper. I can see what they've done there. Because they don't know Chris Dale like we know Chris Dale.
Well, no, I suppose Chris Dale was not born then. Oh, did you hear that? That was my cat just having had a punch-up outside with a neighbouring cat and bursting into the cat flap.
Fair enough. It's a Nice way to spend the time, I suppose. Now, look, I'm going to head on over to our emails because we have been sent a few to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
That's lucky, isn't it?
Yeah. Billy Wilkie, for example, says, "Hi, Jamie and Richard. I hope you're both keeping safe during the End of the World Part 2. Oh, come on, Billy. It's not that bad, is it? He says, "My questions are, would you both take a look at a retexturing of the Thunderbird 2 craft design for the 2004 film that I did and see what you both make of it?" And he attached a nice file. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, Jamie.
Yes, it's lovely. Much more classic Thunderbird 2 colouring, but on the 2004 design. I'm sure that'll still be contentious for some. But,
of course, yeah.
Shall we post it in the Podsterons Facebook group?
That'd be a marvellous idea, yeah. Yeah, it looks sort of darker and moodier, doesn't it? It's quite nice in the darker colours. He says, "My question is, what do you make of the craft redesigns for the film? Thanks, gents. Warm regards, Will." Well, what do we think of that? The redesigns.
It's really hard to improve on perfection, isn't it?
Yes, that much is true. We tried every week.
And fail every week.
Yeah.
I mean, Thunderbird 2, it's so beautiful and curvy and lovely and iconic and standout. Any attempt to redesign it feels like an attempt to improve it. And it's just so standout, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that Thunderbird 1 and 3 are a bit more generic, kind of rockety.
Yes.
The designs were nice in the 2004 film. And as a standalone thing, they're lovely designs, but it's just so hard to when you compare them against the 60s version.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy for any Podsteron to disagree.
Of course.
That is your absolute right.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. We like it when people disagree with Jamie. Send your disagreements in to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Peter Durnan doesn't disagree with anything we've said, as far as I know, but he does say this: "Gentlemen, this email should have been entitled 'Hello from Goa 2,' as you kindly read out my first email to you. Sadly, yes, because of the current situation," says Peter, "our trip to India was cancelled. However, you guys have been keeping us royally entertained, along with the Podsterons, doing a fab job. I had to write following the interview with David Tremont, which made me quite emotional. Many Anderson fans are extremely passionate about the shows, but David's took this to another level. The fact that he still has the handmade by his father wooden models of the Thunderbird craft is quite incredible. He sounds an amazingly modest man and clearly loves what he does. This is now in my top 3 favourite interviews. Keep them coming and please keep on keeping on. With the very best regards from Peter Durnan." Isn't that nice?
That is lovely, yes. And I forwarded that to David, who was very touched, Peter. So I was actually going to say, if you enjoy the interviews, then please don't worry about writing in and just saying, "I really like this person's great," and I'll try and forward it to them and let them know, because, a lot of people aren't super comfortable being interviewed and doing podcasts and might afterwards think, "Oh, maybe that was a bit rubbish."
Yeah, well...
So if you've enjoyed it, let them know.
And also, several subjects, well, certainly the people I've spoken to, with the exception of Terry Adlam and Lee Sullivan, really, often say, "Oh, I don't know, I've got nothing interesting to say. Why would they be interested in me? Why would they want to know that?" So it's great to hear from listeners that, well, actually, we do want to hear. So, do send us your kind regards to our guests and we'll forward them on to them. I've got another one here from the wonderfully named Jackson Starkiller. Please let that be his real name.
Must be. He's a supervillain, isn't
Exactly, yes. "Hello, Jamie and Richard. I've only recently started listening to the podcast, so I have a lot of catching up to do, too right. In Pod 7, says Jackson Starkiller, cast your mind back. You asked the listeners to share the weirdest place they've listened to the podcast. Did we? Okay. He says, I don't know if you're still interested, but in case you are, here's mine. I broke my ankle in 3 places yesterday evening while skateboarding. Yeah. While I was waiting in the emergency room at 1:30 in the morning for someone to come and pick me up, I was able to manage the pain with listening to the podcast. The fact that the Randomiser picked a new Captain Scarlet episode really helped too. I also thought that Richard would like to know that Space Precinct is my favourite live-action Gerry Anderson show. Which is why, of course, I read out his email.
Absolutely.
Jackson. So if you want to stand a really good chance of getting your email read, that's what you got to do.
Break your ankle and praise Richard. Yes. That's the magic formula.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, get well soon.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson Starkiller.
Yeah.
What a great... I love that name.
Yeah, wonderful, isn't it?
If that isn't your real name, change it by deed poll to that, because, you you'll get far in life with a name like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Pod 7 was an interview with David Graham, if I remember correctly.
Oh, gosh, you're good, aren't you? Do you listen back then? Is that how you spend your evenings, Jamie? Listening back to all the podcasts? Do you have a spreadsheet? Do you mark them out of 10? And,
So I do my own randomiser, where I randomise episodes of the podcast and listen to them, and then I, as suggested in a recent podcast, I comment upon the previous podcast, but then I just keep it for my own collection.
Fascinating.
Of course I blooming don't.
Wouldn't put it past you. So yes, do send in your emails to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and I'll be reading out some tweets and Facebook messages a little bit later on.
But before those, let's have some Gerry Anderson news.
Oh, yes!
It is some...
Newsy news.
Thank you, Richard. It's almost like you were going to forget to do that then.
It slipped my mind entirely.
That seems weird after 104 podcasts.
Isn't it odd? Yeah, slightly worrying.
Okay, let's get some sad news out of the way first.
Yes.
As we always say, with the passing of time for these cult TV shows, we will see, sadly, more and more losses from the world of Gerry Anderson. And last week, we got the sad news that Suzanne Roquette had passed away, age 78. You may know her, Podsterons, as Tanya Alexander from 22 episodes of Space 1999. She was in lots and lots of other stuff across the years, lots of cult TV. And I'm sure we met her at an ITC event at Elstree. I may have got that wrong. It may have been a different event, but certainly our paths had crossed.
Wow.
Very nice lady, and we're very sad to hear the news. So thoughts with her friends and family, as always, in these situations.
Of course.
Thankfully, it's not all sad news this week, although there is a bit of slight disappointment, I suppose, in that we were only able to release 2 of the new Gerry Anderson audiobooks.
Oh, yes.
Terrorhawks and Into Infinity.
Yeah.
Gemini Force 1, I was going to say Jerify Force 1 there, interestingly. No, Gemini Force 1 and Space Breeding Democracy are hopefully coming this week due to some unexpected technical issues which have now been, thankfully, overcome. So you can look forward to those, but there are samples floating around. That sounds a bit strange. There are samples of the audiobooks which we've posted online, and I believe, Richard, that Space Precinct Demeter City is going to be even more special
Well, I would hope so.
Previously expected.
Yes. Yeah. That'd be, a terrible thing if I said no, it's going to be even worse than we were expecting.
Yeah. No, it's going to be even better. So you've got something to look forward to there. If you want to learn about how Brogan and Haldane left New York and got to Altor, then you will not want to miss Space Precinct Demeter City.
Yeah, and just wait till you hear my Captain Podley impression.
Oh, your Podley is so lovely. Goodness me, it really is something to behold.
Well, it's a little homage to Jerome.
It's great. So do go and grab those. If you've ordered a bundle via the website, then when these next two books are out, they'll just be added to your bundle and you can download them whenever you like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've discussed this before, Richard, but it's such a strange time. I never thought we'd have face masks on the Gerry Anderson store, but we do now.
Great.
It's bizarre. Some Terrorhawks and New Captain Scarlet masks are available right this second, and now they are mandatory on public transport, I believe.
In the UK from June the 15th, I think. That's right. So
exactly.
Good timing. Yeah.
So, and you might as well show your love for Anderson stuff and get something which is a bit more interesting than a plain bit of material. Yeah. They've got replaceable filters and potentially will protect others around you and maybe even you. So, yes, if that floats your boat and you want an Anderson face mask, then go to shop.gerryanderson.co.uk. It feels
Wonderful.
So weird saying that. Now, finally, Richard, this is just a little hint of something that's coming at the end of this week, I believe.
Wow, okay.
I believe that you have recently paid us a visit to a planet of bones. Is that right?
Might have done.
Eagle-eyed TV21 fans will know that the Planet of Bones was a Zero X strip from the 1960s comic. And we're turning that into something rather special to be released in 3 parts over the next few weeks on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, then go to youtube.com/GerryAndersonTV. And we expect part 1 of the Planet of Bones to be released this coming Saturday.
Crikey.
What'll that be? The Saturday the 13th, I think?
Right, okay, yeah.
At 10:30 a.m, perhaps?
Amazing. And you recorded it yesterday?
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
And I believe that you are in that with 2 other Anderson alumni.
Yes, new Captain Scarlet himself, Wayne Forrester, and Stewed Apples. He won't thank me for that, will he?
Yeah, he will. He loves that. It's only blooming Robbie Stevens.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, so you are the new crew of the Zero X.
Hooray!
We should say no more, but it's all very exciting, and Chris Thompson has headed up that project and done a rather lovely job.
Yeah.
So stand by for a Zero X adventure this weekend.
Wonderful.
Right, and on that bombshell, that's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. 0x news.
Nice.
Oh, gosh. Actually, I should have kept the noise down there. I've just remembered we've got the carpenter in today, and he probably heard me.
I think he already probably thinks you're a bit of a weirdo.
I think you might be right. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. We're here for the next, 45 minutes, an hour or so. Do stay with us. Subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Leave us a nice review and a rating, and share us with your friends so they can hear us too. Now, Jamie, I'm going to head on over to Twitter, where people have been tweeting us all week using the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Now, do you remember last time, Jamie, on Chris Dale's Randomiser, we were thinking, after we'd heard it, that there was another voice there that sounded vaguely familiar. His co-star for last week's Randomiser.
Oh, yes.
Turns out, well, I'll let Chris himself explain via a tweet at Chris Dalek, tweeted, "A huge thank you and a hug to Nana Visitor." None other than, Kira Nerys, I think, from Deep Space Nine, for being the first ever guest star on my Gerry Anderson podcast, Randomiser. She instantly agreed and has been brill throughout, and being able to say I've acted with one of my very fave people just for a few minutes is priceless. Yes, lovely. What a star.
It was I love the fact that Chris is getting his own guest stars for Randomiser sketches. It's great.
Absolutely incredible. So yes, do tag at Chris Dalek and thank him for getting Nana Visitor along. Kaimoru, again, has got in touch. I'm absolutely in love with Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, created by the wonderful Gerry Anderson. So I commissioned artwork of Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue because I love their friendship. And they posted a lovely image, beautifully rendered by @Luciano Vecchio, I think that is. So anyway, search for it on Twitter, Kaimoru, CHIMORU5, to have a look at that lovely artwork of Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue. Lindsay tweeted, "There's side effects." Now, I don't know. I may have read this out last week, so forgive me if I did.
It's fine, just do it anyway.
Yeah. Lindsay says, "There's side effects to listening to 55 episodes of the Gerry Anderson Podcast in 41 days, including humming the FAB Facts music for 2 days, expecting Quickfire 5 on hearing a horn blow, and saying Spectrum is green at random times." To which Mike Plant responded, "I've been having similar problems." So that led me to think, Podsterons, do you find yourself going about your daily life and suddenly something reminds you of the podcast? The FAB Facts music, for example. I always get it when I'm watching TV and someone says, "And that brings us to the end of," and I always imagine to say, "this week's FAB Facts." So let us know, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, or tweet us, hashtagging us, Gerry Anderson Podcast, tagging him. I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James.
I look forward to being tagged.
Always.
Thank you. Now, Richard, shall we pop along to New Zealand for a bit?
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
Oh, it would be. Well, we're only doing it vicariously through our podcast guest, David Tremont.
Fair enough.
David lives in New Zealand. That's where he was when we did this interview. Mm-hmm. He is a rather extraordinary model maker and lovely human being. And this is part 2 of our chat, all about his love of Gerry Anderson, how he got into the industry, climbing the ladder, doing crazy projects, and I think even how he eventually got involved with Weta. So here's part 2 with David Tremont. So Weta really, is it fair to say Weta's founded on a kind of Anderson fascination? Without Thunderbirds, there might be no Weta, or certainly a different Weta.
There would have been a Weta. It would have had different inspirations, because the main drive for Weta was Peter's fascination for horror. He was making all of his bad taste and feebles and stuff with Richard and Tanya, and they kind of put Weta. I don't know the complete story off the top of my head, but definitely Thunderbirds was a major driving force for Richard wanting to do the special effects and models and all of that stuff as well. It would have happened. Who knows whether it would have been different. But the fact that Thunderbirds existed and there's so many driving forces of technicians that loved Thunderbirds, that inspired them to make stuff and become makers and designers.
Yeah. Well, a whole range of... And, I was speaking the other day to Paul Franklin from Double Negative. And obviously he's in visual effects, really, and although he's heavily into special effects stuff too, and he loves the blend. But even people who go into the digital world, the digital space, have been inspired by it too. So it's always lovely to hear the level of influence.
Oh, yes, actually, now to say that, a lot of Weta Digital as well. A lot of those guys are inspired by that stuff. Years ago when when Carlton were trying to get something going, and Weta may have been involved. There's guys from Weta Digital coming up to the workshop asking, how's it going? Can we be involved? And all that sort of stuff. So, yes, there's certainly a lot of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So this branch of conversation, David, came because I stopped you talking about your entry into film and TV. So can you just take me briefly through kind of your entry point from the making and advertising and putting your portfolio together to getting into TV and the path that took you to Weta?
Yeah, the first things I started working on professionally would have been in the late 70s. Yeah, and that was basically being paid to make models for fans of different TV stuff or just made up stuff, just whatever, make me a spaceship. Getting to do some very simple things for TV commercials. Sydney at that time had a fledgling special effects company, and I ended up meeting those guys and getting to work on a lot of TV commercials with them. They had developed and built a motion control camera, built it all themselves, and that was the only one in existence in Australia. And so I got to work on a lot of TV commercials at the end of the 70s and into the 80s with them. And then they started getting to do work on a lot of Australian films, which are kind of the low-budget, typical Australian stuff shot in the outback with giant pigs and crocodiles and stuff. So those were the first sorts of films I got to work on where, there was no such thing as digital. That was, science fiction technology. So anything that was out of the ordinary or something had to happen to it or it didn't exist, whatever, we had to make it. So lots of things to get blown up, lots of weird vehicles and spaceships, and most of the work we got to do was commercials. That was like the bread and butter. There's so many back-to-back commercials that needed odd things made for them. And getting to work on the films was quite good fun. One of the trying to remember all of those bits and pieces. It's so long ago. It's all kind of blurred.
It's fine. Just impressionist strokes of your memories are fine.
There was a big science fiction film was being developed called The Time Guardian. And there's a big time travel thing with a futuristic city and cyborgs and all sorts of machines and props and costumes and stuff that had to be built. It was a good chunk of a year's work doing all the props and miniatures with a big crew of people in a warehouse. And that was, it was a typical Australian film. It was, I don't think anyone watched it, but it represented a huge amount of work for us, and that's always my memory of the big entry into special effects in a film where we get to build everything, wrangle all the miniatures on set and dress all the actors and look after costumes and all that sort of stuff. We got to work on everything. So lots of special effects, lots of explosions, blowing up things left, right and centre. It was just a wonderful experience of practical special effects, doing everything in camera. And that company, Mirage Effects, that grew and grew, and they got to do a lot more bigger and bigger stuff and ended up moving to larger facilities because they're taking on a lot more high-end special effects work. We even got to work on a production of Ultraman for Japan. And that was a hell of an experience because we're kind of all fans of Godzilla and all of those sorts of big giant monster films. So that was great fun being able to build all of these cityscapes and futuristic vehicles and have monsters stomp all over them. And there was an awful lot of blowing stuff up as well. Lots of miniatures for that. We worked on that show for months with a Japanese crew, so that was good fun. But we were working on a commercial for one of the local airlines, I think it was at the time, and a sample video was delivered of this new technology called digital technology. And we were all huddled up into the office to, crowded around the TV to have a look at this amazing new technology. We were told that this is going to end our careers. We should pack our toolboxes and find other jobs, basically. This was in would have been in the mid-'80s. And what it was a digital fly-through of a futuristic cityscape. It was ultra clean and smooth, utterly unrealistic. It was hugely expensive to produce this few minutes of footage, and apparently took vast amounts of time to render it all. We were kind of chuckled a little bit and got back to work, continued building miniatures and stuff. But that technology kept on improving. But it proved to be rather costly and time-consuming to do stuff that wasn't realistic. It just no one was buying into it. It was a novelty. So that kind of waned a bit. Then you get people like James Cameron and a few others like him that started making movies with massive miniatures, massive special effects, all in-camera stuff. And so miniatures, instead of nosediving, certainly came back and became huge. Miniatures was the thing for movies, doing everything practically and with big special effects, big budget stuff. And that's the way it went for many years. But then the digital technology kept on getting better and better. And, of course, nowadays it's so freaking good. It is replacing us. I've seen a lot of stuff that we used to do just keeps on disappearing, like matte painting, glass painting, even stop motion was a thing. If you wanted fancy creatures or machines, you do it in stop motion. We certainly don't do that anymore unless it's a novelty approach.
And something niche.
Yeah, even we had to do a lot of puppetry with different creatures and stuff. That's all disappeared, but now it's coming back as a niche thing. Hopefully it'll come back more mainstream. Well, it certainly has for a lot of Star Wars stuff, which is brilliant. Hope I'm not rambling too much.
No, this is all the sort of stuff that we want to hear about.
It's kind of how my brain works. I never know what it's at any given time of the day.
It's fine. So we've got the Time Guardian and Ultraman and that sort of side of things, and digital coming along. So how do you get to?
That's right. We're heading to Weta, aren't we? Slowly.
We are. That's the idea.
Boat. Yeah, so I worked all the way through the 80s, lots of mostly TV commercials, occasional films. A lot of the films were sort of very low-budgety things. A lot of overseas films came to Australia to do stuff cheaply, so there are lots of low-end monster movies and stuff mostly. A couple of TV shows like a resurrection of Mission Impossible happened, so I got to work on a little bit of that down in Melbourne for a couple of weeks, just working on a big miniature set for them, again with a big crew of people. And I got to do a lot of music videos. A filmmaker called Alex Proyas, which a lot of film people would know that name, and a lot of big action movies that came out in recent years. But Alex did a lot of music videos. So I got to work on a lot of those. So I had like special props and costume pieces and just special items for those. But then Warner Brothers Studios were being set up in Queensland on the Gold Coast, and I got invited to join a couple of people to set up a model shop with a special effects company. So I kind of leapt at that opportunity. It was on a film lot where they're going to be shooting back-to-back movies forever. And so I set up in the early 90s on the Gold Coast with a friend in conjunction with a special effects company. They did a lot of digital stuff, a lot of motion control stuff, a lot of practical stuff, and we did all the miniatures and props. And so right through the 90s, I was working on just back-to-back, mostly American television shows, bunch of movies, usually, again, all the movies of the week coming out from America, because I wanted to do them a bit cheaper in Australia. But it was an incredible learning curve because none of these shows had a budget, and you're talking about 4 weeks, if you're lucky, for your entire pre-production. That's to build everything. So it was really, learning on the fly to be able to create props and costumes and miniatures and stuff to, within those incredibly tight constraints. But it was also brilliant because being able to go on set to wrangle all of this stuff. I got to meet Kylie Minogue one day. And it was massive. It was tough, very, very hard work. It was pretty brutal at times, but got to work on a lot of stuff. And it didn't matter with that the productions were low budget productions. The stuff we built was still had to be good. So lots of miniatures, lots of props, lots of costumes and spacesuits, going on locations, pretending that it's Mars and wrangling a lot of actors in spacesuits and blowing up lots more spaceships and vehicles. And with that, we got to do a lot of display models as well for different shows around the world. Of course, working the studio, the theme park was there as well. So got to do a few bits and pieces for them, just for their shows, props and things that they use in their shows. But, to cut a long story short, the end. Kidding. This morning. So I hope I'm putting some detail into this. It quite literally is just a blur. Everything just melded into the next job, into the next job, into the next job. It was some of the...
You are a bit of a non-stop worker, aren't you? Because you do genuinely just love making stuff. That is your one true passion.
It is. I go nuts if I can't make stuff. So this lockdown is driving me nuts. I can't make stuff. The hours at times were very long. At one point, a prop had to be adjusted, or a bunch of props had to be adjusted because someone forgot to tell us, and it was needed in 3 days' time. We only just found out by chance that these things had to be done. So I ended up working 3 days and nights straight to get these things finished. I was a zombie at the end of that. Yeah,
I bet.
That was tough. A couple of other guys were helping out, and they would literally just fall asleep in their chairs and clonk into the bench with their forehead, and then they'd sleep for a couple of hours. Yeah, but I managed to do it. I couldn't do that now, not to that level. That was tough. But we did a hell of a lot of amazing stuff. But we were working on a children's show which had a huge amount of spaceships and futuristic cities and props and bits and pieces to build for it. It was a massive, massive build. And that was, again, a great deal of fun. But we heard about...
What show was that? Can you remember what it was called?
Halfway Across the Galaxy and Turn Left.
Catchy name. I've not heard of that, but that's kind of like a sci-fi
kid show, an Australian one, just a local one. It was basically from this alien planet. You'd have to travel halfway across the galaxy. There's a big sign that says Earth that away. You turn left, and that heads to Earth. So halfway across the galaxy and turn left. And I got to wrangle a lot of the practical effects for that, and I designed all of it around Thunderbirds. Everything was flown on wires. All the spaceships were flown on wires. We did everything practically just like Thunderbirds, and that was like, yes.
Awesome.
And that was good fun. But we heard about this guy in New Zealand doing Lord of the Rings. When we're getting I might have my timescales wrong, but I'm sure it was working on that production that we heard about this Lord of the Rings show. It would have been heading towards the end of the 90s. hopefully I haven't got my timescales too wrong, but the story's the same. We looked up what this guy does, and we saw these schlocky, blood and guts, low-budget horror movies with zombies and vile stuffed animals and a whole bunch of stuff like that. This guy's doing Lord of the Rings? You have to be kidding me. And we kind of thought nothing of it. And then sometime later, things started coming out about this new production, Lord of the Rings, and it was starting to look impressive. There was adverts in magazines, looking for crew from around the world. And I was tempted, but I was running a workshop. I was employing people, and I just kind of ignored it because I still kind of had these, schlocky horror movie thingos in the back of my mind. But after a while, Richard Taylor and Tanya, through a mutual friend who was working on a commercial over there with them at the time, told them about me. And Richard got in touch, asking if I'd like to be involved because they're looking for model makers. And I kind of turned down, I'm kind of busy. Can I do stuff here? I can work on stuff here in my workshop because I can't leave the workshop. We're busy. He said, no, too confidential. We can't let anything out. And they eventually, they called a few times and kept on trying to convince me to join them. They eventually came over and visited and talked me into at least going over there and visiting them. They more wanted to size me up and just get to know me and make sure I was worth pursuing, I assume. And so I ended up going over there and I hung out there for a couple of days and I fell in love with the place, with Weta Workshop and falling down an old manky building with if it's raining outside, there's more rain inside. If it's windy outside, there's more wind inside. Holes everywhere. The place is prone to flooding and leaking and cold. You wouldn't believe in winter and boiling in summer. It was just this old tin building, 100 years old, whatever. And literally magic was happening in those walls. Best of the best from around the world had descended on this place and were creating this. By the time I got over there, they were well into the production, well into building stuff. So I kind of came into it a bit late, but what I saw was just mind-blowing. And all of these young people were just making stuff up as they went, just inventing stuff as they went. None of these things had been done before. So I kind of, I'll join you. I'll come over. And so I ended up going back, packing up.
Couldn't resist, I guess.
I packed up my workshop. It just coincided literally with ending a bunch of work. There was going to be a gap before the next one. I thought, okay, this is the opportunity. Take it. I will regret it if I don't go for it. I always thought I'd come back. As it turned out, the visual effects company that I was working with were gearing up with a big visual effects thing, and they needed to do a lot of digital stuff, and they were hoping to get that space I was in. So it kind of worked out perfectly. So they ended up moving in there with a digital suite, and I ended up moving out and putting all my stuff into containers, which were parked out in the car park, and I moved over with a basic kit to New Zealand, to here, and ended up my first job on Lord of the Rings was building Grond, the giant battering ram that smashes through the gates of Minas Tirith. And that thing was the size of a small van. It was huge and it weighed over a ton because we did all the paneling on it in lead. Wow. It was all hand-hammered lead over the entire body, and all the runes, thousands of them, were all done by hand all over this huge beastie. So it was massive. So when it smashed through the gate, it really smashed through the gate. And what turned into what I thought I'd be here for just a short period, just working on rings, I ended up getting my containers freighted over. I haven't left since, and they're still trying to figure out how to get rid of me. now been here for 20 years.
So 20
years.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Worked on everything that Weta's worked on since Lord of the Rings. But I don't seek movie credits and all of that sort of. I've sort of kind of been there, done that. I don't really feel the need. I have to work on this film because I have to have a credit on it. I just love to make stuff. And I love doing really fine, high-end detail stuff, tiny, tiny detail. So when the collectibles started, I kind of threw myself into that because I got to then make, very, very intricate models of all of these things. And I've been working on that stuff now for over 10 years, just doing really high-end, fine precision model making. And unfortunately, by the time that goes into production and comes out as a polystone, it tends to soften a lot of the detail a bit. And, of course, manufacturing, you've got to do certain things, otherwise you can't reproduce it. So, but I get to build the masters, the originals of a lot of these things. And, I love doing that, just sitting there at my bench quietly listening to Gerry Anderson podcasts and making tiny, tiny details.
Well, sorry for the first bit, but I'm glad you get to do the second bit. So, films that you worked on in that time at Weta, obviously Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, District 9. Did you do stuff on that?
I did. Again, a lot of the later films like District 9, I was very much involved in looking after the collectibles, so I couldn't really stop working on that. That was an ongoing production. I had to keep that wagon rolling. So I got to do bits and pieces. But District 9 went through a design change into the production. And so a lot of things I worked on never got used because they were the concepts changed and the look of it changed. So a lot of those things that I ended up doing for District 9 didn't get used, which is a bugger. But that's the way it goes. But I got to make a few of these things. Yeah, God, try and ask me what I did for different films. It's just I don't remember.
You tried to put everything you'd built and designed into a single room across your career. I don't know how massive that room would be, but it would be quite overwhelming.
It'd be quite large, yeah. Yes, it'd take up a fair bit of stuff. But I have made many, many tiny, tiny things. So a lot of, like all the collectibles I've worked on could, go into even though there's been many, many of them, but they're all really quite small. You could fit all of those into a reasonably tight area, especially if you put your foot on it and squeeze all the air out of it.
If you powder them to dust, then yes, it could be a tiny area. Thank you, Mr. David Tremont. One more part of him next week.
Yeah, lovely.
Arm, foot, hair. I don't know what's coming next week, but there's one more bit to go.
Oh, it's a bit like Mr. Potato Head, isn't it?
Don't call him that. Very rude. What? If you enjoyed our interview with Mr. Potato Head, as Rich is now calling him. Sorry. Very, very rude. Do email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and I will pass on your thanks and thoughts to David. I'm sure he'll be very grateful to receive them. But yes, such a lovely chap, so modest, so talented, and just really nice to chat to. Like I said, we chatted before and after the podcast interview for some time.
Lovely, yeah.
What a nice chap. So more of that to come. And some really interesting interviews coming up in the next few weeks too. We've got Morgan Jeffrey.
Oh, yes.
Who's, I think, what's his current title? Acting Executive Editor for Radio Times Online, something like that.
Nice.
I may have made that up. Comedians Trev and Simon, off of the television.
Oh, please ask them if they do duvets.
I will ask them absolutely that. And also Gemini Force One author MG Harris will be coming up in the next few weeks as well, talking about Dad's final creation of his life that she finished off and expanded on and built into a fully fleshed out world, and now released, or will be shortly, as an audiobook. So all those to look forward to, and many more. If you've got suggestions for interviewees, email them to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk or tweet us. Use the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tag me, I'm Jamie Anderson, or him, Richard N. James, and also Chris Dale at Chris Darlick.
Yes, there we are. You remembered. Well done. Now, Jamie posts our podcast up on YouTube, of course.
Do I?
Every week, yes.
Actually, I don't do that. Ross does that.
Well
Thank
done,
you,
Ross.
for doing that.
Thank you for that. And it does excite a few comments, you may have noticed, some of which I feel happy reading out.
A few of which.
These are over the last few weeks. So, for example, Ian Dealey said, looking forward to the rest of David Tremont's interview. I hope he talks a bit about Thunderbirds Are Go, because he worked on that too. Well, we shall see. Volcano1 posted, this is about the release of the audiobooks. Book readings are good, but if it had been full cast Big Finish audio plays, I'd have bought them all. I think that brings its own problems, really, doesn't it, for these various things?
A full cast audio production is expensive, number one.
Yeah.
And difficult to do during lockdown, although we are doing them. They present their own challenges. I mean, you were part of a full cast audio recording yesterday, which, as you know, has its kinks to iron out.
It does.
Is that fair?
Yes, that's absolutely fair, yeah.
So, and also, Gemini Force One is a huge cast. I mean, there's like 20 characters. And that is also a problem.
Nice. Darren Lodge says, I got Fireball XL5 in the post recently, and going through the episodes at the moment, I love the puppet work when they are floating in space, especially Professor Matic when his little legs are kicking. Top work. He also just bought Supercar on DVD, and he's waiting for the next. And finally, for now, over on YouTube, Rodimus184, I think, speaks for many of us on his post from a couple of weeks ago for Pod 101, where they say, here's to many, many, many more Terry Wogan impressions. The old Wogan, eh?
How about, Richard?
Yeah?
Terry Wogan introduces this week's randomiser.
The old Chris Dale, eh? Well, here we are with the randomiser.
Oh, come in. Unless you're the Galactic Empress's Royal Guard, in which case I really don't want to.
Buenos dias, amigos. Miguel Humberto dos Passos Francesca at your service.
Oh, hello, Miguel. Well, it's nice to see a friendly face.
I am sorry, senor, to disturb your siesta, but I came to warn you. It is nearly time, senor.
Time? Oh, time for another randomiser, is it? Yes, well, you'd think Jamie and Richard could learn to do without me, just for 1 week.
Forget it, amigo.
Yes, I suppose the podcast would rather fall apart without me. I mean, those two, they do try, don't they? But, well, you know.
But then they get a lot of practice.
True. Can't knock them for trying. Tell me, did they offer me any kind of incentive to do it this week?
A sombrero full of dollars, senor.
Oh. Right, well, here's the randomiser. There's the button. You have at it.
Good fishing, amigo.
I take it from the praying that you're expecting the worst.
There could be trouble.
Well, there frequently is. Let's see. Oh, well, yes and no. Unfortunately, it's another dream episode today, which is, well, you know.
Life is a struggle.
Isn't it just? But it does come from a show we haven't seen on the randomiser for a very, very long time indeed, so that's something. Right?
You are mad.
Oh, the Secret Service is mad.
I am mad.
Well, glad we got all that straightened out. Here's Errand of Mercy. So welcome back to the randomiser. The Secret Service. It has been a while since we've been here. I want to say it's probably been the best part of a year. Because this is only the second episode of the Secret Service we've actually seen. After A Question of Miracles, we're now back at the old vicarage with Father Unwin, who's under Gabriel giving it a bit of a tinker with.
I can't understand why you don't get yourself a modern car.
And I have a feeling this is the only teaser in the whole series to feature Father Unwin.
Now with Gabriel, one can experience motoring.
And this is a lovely part of the Unwin character, his
power underfoot.
His love for this old car.
Noisy.
Exhilarating.
Hard to drive. Said so.
And what makes it even more enjoyable is the fact that Gabriel doesn't have any fancy gadgets or anything like that. All it has is this.
Every nut and bolt. Look at the workmanship. This car would...
It's a lovely model, and I'm surprised and also glad that they didn't load it with gadgets or anything. It just makes Unwin's attachment to it even more touching. Anyway, Unwin's not doing too well at the moment. He's a bit unsteady on his feet.
It's nothing. It'll pass. It'll pass.
Touch of the sun. It is... Oh, there he goes. And
They're
down.
Unwin. Matthew, come and help me. Father Unwin's collapsed.
Oh no. He's even dropped his glasses. Anyway, Father Unwin is all right now. He's gone to bed. Mrs. Appleby is taking good care of him.
You know what the doctor said. Put away that paper and get some rest.
I'm perfectly all right, Mrs. Appleby.
Oh, so Father Unwin reads the Times.
Oh, yes, I know. Now you take a couple of these pills. It'll help you sleep.
Tablets. Send them to Africa. That's where they're really needed.
Unless they're those tablets that Tessa Wyatt and her boyfriend had at the farmhouse, in which case I'm already way ahead of you, Mrs. Appleby.
Terrible.
That's it. Now, I'll turn out the light and leave the door open.
Oh.
Call out if you want anything. Good night, Father.
Considering she's a minor antagonist,
Mrs. Appleby, and thank you.
For the most part, at least she sort of frustrates occasionally Unwin and Matthew's attempts to do their Secret Service stuff. She does care for him. I just noticed we've got a close-up on that newspaper, which is now not the Times, it's the Universal News, which seems to be a reused newspaper prop from somewhere, but I can't think where at the moment. But Father Unwin's got a lot on his mind. The headline was about people suffering and dying in Africa. Plague in Central Africa.
Supplies urgently.
Urgently required medical supplies.
Anywhere.
And then, of course, it goes into the regular article about Slough Centre players or something. Anyway, we're now in Father Unwin's head, as if the world of the Secret Service couldn't get any more
it's on.
Crazy. We're
after the briefing. Are you ready?
We're now in a military base. Father Unwin and Matthew are getting their orders.
Right, gentlemen. If you will look at the map, you'll see the first stage is non-stop to Timbuktu. Here, you will land and refuel. The petrol supply is in the desert 5 miles north of the town.
Yes, I have it on the flight map.
Good. Now stage 2. Due south to a jungle clearing. Here you will pick up the medical supplies.
I see. And from there to Bishopsville.
Yes, Dr. Pepple will be waiting. Now, men, this is the most dangerous...
And it is rather surprising that, considering there's only 13 episodes of the Secret Service, we have a dream episode produced as like the 6th or 7th.
Only supervise your takeoff. Right, men? On your way.
You wouldn't have thought they'd have run out of ideas so quickly, but I suspect they just want to do whatever weird thing takes their fancy.
E42 to control. Engine run-up complete.
As we're about to see quite conclusively, and which rather puts my thank goodness they didn't put any gadgets in Gabriel comment to shame. Here's Gabriel being lined up on the runway.
Everything all right, Matthew? Everything's fine. Good. Lifting off.
Ah, lovely sight. Beautiful.
Yep, Model T Ford cruising on down the runway and taking to the skies. What could be more natural? I apologise, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with the Secret Service and this is one of your first exposures to it. I can't, it's a dream episode. What can I say? You've probably seen a Super Mario Nation dream episode. This is up there with the weirdest. Anyway, Father Unwin and Matthew are off to, where were they going? Timbuktu, that was where they were going. A desert rendezvous in their flying Model T Ford.
The weather should get better. We'll soon be over the Alps. But it certainly can't get worse.
And having not too long ago covered See You Down There, which, as I said, I loved. I know certain other people who were associated with this podcast weren't too keen. This is the kind of thing I was talking about, where the really surreal stuff starts to come in. And as with much of the Secret Service, I enjoy this, but I honestly don't know who they were aiming this at. I mean, I don't mean the series generally right now, I mean this specific episode. They were asking a lot.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah, they were asking a lot of viewers who had already had to accept quite a few out-of-the-norm things. Anyway, we're now in the Alps. The weather conditions are pretty bad. We're heading straight towards a mountain.
Look out!
That was close.
Well, Matthew? Close, Father. Too close. Trust in Providence. Trust in Providence. You'll soon be over the burning sands of the desert.
Oh, joy. I'm recording this on a very, very hot day, and I have to record with the windows closed so you don't hear any birds or such. So I am rather roasting right now. So it's a bit appropriate that we find ourselves in the desert. That's it. It's one little house in the middle of nowhere with English teas served daily, 4:30 p.m. printed on the roof. And 2 petrol pumps. I suppose it's a nice idea that we have an episode that focuses on Unwin's love for his car.
Round the back.
Since it is a fairly major part of his character, but even so, this... I'm sure there were other ways of realising that kind of story, if that was the plan, than a dream episode. Anyway,
Effendi? If you would.
Here's Mrs. Appleby manning the petrol pump.
There we are. Full to the brim. Come on then, let's go into the shack.
And of course inside the shack it's...
Don't look much from the outside, but it's home.
Father Unwin's regular vicarage, office, library...
Utterly charming.
Regular standing set that we've seen in all the other episodes.
That sand gets in everywhere.
Oh, right you are.
And I don't know why Matthew has the yokel accent.
A pot of tea.
Inside the dream.
3-minute boil. Is that right, Effendi?
Other than it's Unwin's dream and he knows these people and...
Be too long, Father. We have a schedule to keep up.
And he knows this is how they would react. I mean, this is charming in a way.
Hi. What a nice gentleman. Didn't care for the navigator, though. Struck me as bone idle.
Yep, even in Father Unwin's dreams, Matthew can't get a break from Mrs. Appleby. Yeah, I do wonder...
What a beautiful...
You know, I like this. I like this series. I like this episode on the whole. I wouldn't dare show it to anybody, though. But I just think, you know... We could be having more in the vein of Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and this is not really...
A rather pleasant spot, Matthew.
I don't know if this kind of story is worth spending the resources, all that money and production time to bring to the screen. But to be fair, I do feel that about a lot of Dream episodes. Anyway, Dream Unwin and Dream Matthew have made it to a jungle clearing. But they're now being surrounded by natives. Who, as you can hear, are not too pleased to see them. Oh, and flash cuts. Whoa. Yeah, I think that was to make the...
But at all costs...
The handful of native puppets they had seem like a whole army. With spears and everything. And also, it's very rare you see a puppet's bare chest, but all these natives are bare-chested, and they have lots of sort of, let's say, adornments and such round their joints to keep the joints from showing.
This is the right clearing, but the language is the problem.
And while I'm not going to say they're the most
supplies
sensitive of portrayals, they are quite nice, quite nicely designed puppets. I think these are all new puppets just for this one scene, which is very strange.
It's no good, Father. I think they're preparing for a sacrifice.
I'm also wondering why we don't see Lieutenant Green in amongst them, considering that he was still around for Joe 90.
It might just work.
Anyway, Unwin and Matthew are now tied up at the stake. They're about to be
very travel safari long load here for the medical.
Cooked, but Father Unwin has a plan. Is he getting through to them? I think he is.
Supplies. Medicold?
Exactly. Let me explain. We have in the medicold for the hypodermy.
Hypodermy?
And the stethoscopers.
Stethoscopers?
I love this.
Bandage.
Oink mold.
Oink mold.
All this deep.
This is such a good way to use the Unwinese.
Medicold surplus. Stethoscopers. Bandage circles. Medicold. Bandage.
I know it's wrong, I shouldn't find this funny, but I do.
On behalf of Matthew and myself, from the bottom of my heart...
It's lovely to have a scene as well where Unwin actually...
Italian stuffy with the knife and fork.
...meets someone who not only understands him, but actually engages with him on the same level.
Slight misunderstand, of course. We will carry out our mission. Next stop, Bishopsville.
Which again might be a sort of subconscious desire of his that he just wishes he could communicate with someone on that level, I don't know. Farewelly most. Oh, it's so sweet. So that's it. We've got the medical surplus. Oh, and there's a shot of the sun coming up here.
Matthew, sunrise over Africa.
Which, if you look at the script, as I have done, it has a very odd description, which...
Going to be another scorcher.
Isn't quite realised on screen as it was written in the script. In the script, it had... I think it said something like... A round shape is lifted up over the jungle with the word sun written on it, and suddenly the world is full of light.
Jungle drums, Father.
I can't describe it any more than that, but I wish they had used that in the episode, because that would have been, even for this show, that would have been surreal in the extreme. I'll recognise those drums from somewhere as well. Oh! An enemy airbase with fighter jets! Okay. We're back on course with some fighter jets. Oh, and a gun firing at them, which I think might be a leftover gun from... I want to say from the Eastern Alliance base in Joe 90 Attack of the Tiger.
Hold tight, Matthew.
Taking shots at Gabriel.
Keep going, Father. We're nearly out of range.
This base is giving them everything they've got, but I'm not keen on these shots of Unwin, Matthew and Gabriel with the explosions going off on a projection screen behind them. Oh, this is quite funny though. The guns are accidentally hitting their own installations.
Ceasefire!
Oh, poor old General. His office has been blown up.
We made it! Just so, Matthew. But there's a long way to go. I'm sure they will try everything they can to stop us.
Whoever they are. Oh, yep, here we go. Fighters being scrambled. Which just makes the flying Model T Ford look so more daft by comparison. Because you know the Century 21 model team could do jets and such in their sleep, but...
Control.
The Model T Ford, even for a dream, doesn't look right flying.
Bandits, sir, but...
You sound frightened. What's wrong?
Although it does lead to a magnificent joke here.
It's a Model T. A Model T?
Yes, sir. 1917.
Gawkin Hestelplukenplatz! I realize there are only 3 of you, but it must be stopped.
Okay, I take back anything negative I've said about this episode. It's worth it just for that. And again, it's just wonderful to see that Father Unwin has so much faith in his car.
Prepare to attack.
That he really believes it could take down a squadron of fighter jets.
Right. I have visual contact.
And again, with no gadgets or anything added to it.
That we can outspeed and outmaneuver them. We'll be all right.
Commence attack. Fire at will.
But of course, with no weapons, how are they going to take down 3 fighter jets? It's a tricky one. Well, number 1 has had a go and missed. Here comes number 2. And 3 it looks like as well. How are they going to... Are they going to pull off a joint strike? But they're diving towards each other, which is all part of Father Unwin's trap.
I'm opening her right up.
Oh, that's it. And you got him to collide. He's a wily old bird, that Father Unwin.
1 to go.
Press home the attack. Press home the attack.
Here comes the last one, Father. Don't worry.
Also, I like that in a nice sort of dreamlike touch, all of the pilots are played by the same puppet.
He seems to be staying with us. I see. Hold on. I'll try and shake him off.
How's he going to do that? He's going to give a right turn.
This time I'll get them.
He's going to give a right turn signal and then turn left. How dastardly.
Of me to give an erroneous signal. However, in the circumstances...
And it is at least true to the character in real life how he would behave in this situation. Oh dear. Part of me would actually like to show this to someone who has no conception of or experience of the show at all, just to see what the hell they make of it. I mean, this was shown on television.
You'll never do it!
Not on very many televisions, but it was shown.
Look out!
It's amazing and so silly. Oh, that's it. He's dived towards the jungle, pulled out in time, but the other pilot... Nah, he's had it. That's it, all the plane's gone.
Oh dear, I trust the pilot's not seriously injured.
Oh, no one's ever injured in the Secret Service yet. The pilot is hanging upside down out of a tree. And now we get probably the saddest scene in the entire Secret Service. This is tragic.
Come in 1, come in 2.
Come in, anybody!
Some old Four Feather Falls music.
Leader here, General.
What happened? Where are you?
In a tree, General. All jets destroyed. All destroyed.
I feel so sorry for this guy.
Immortal T 1917. What chance did we stand?
And the Four Feather Falls music really sells it because it's so sad.
Dr. Purple? Dr. Purple?
Anyway, we're now at Bishopsville, here to see Dr. Purple, who is, of course...
The Bishop!
I've done that before.
We brought the medical supplies you so urgently required.
My dear fellows, I must congratulate you. Can I get you anything?
All I need is about a week's sleep. Yes, I must admit, I'm feeling a little drowsy myself.
Of course. Through here, gentlemen. Through here.
That's it. It's rather like the end of Mr. Ben, almost. He's being presented with a door to go through to end his adventure.
Remember what the doctor said. Rest. Lots of rest.
Reality is starting to sneak back in as Father Unwin
I can't.
spins towards the camera.
Noisy.
Exhilarating.
Do you know what?
Hard to drive.
It was all a dream.
Quite a twist, huh? Bet you didn't see that one coming.
Time to wake up, Father. Matthew, yeah. What time is it? It's 11:30. You slept for 14 hours.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be getting plenty of rest. Why are you waking him?
Fine.
Why are you using your yokel voice again?
Get Gabriel out of the garage. If you feel up to it, Father. Certainly I do. We'll go somewhere exciting. Exotic.
Ooh.
Hampstead Heath.
Oh, well. Father Owen's up and about again, and he seems happy.
Today I would like you to give a little thought to those in far-off places who do not have the good things of life that we sometimes take for granted.
Oh, it was a very short sermon, delivered only to, I think, Captain Grey and one female extra. It's a very small congregation today. But I do like that the Secret Service episodes end mostly with those little sermons at the end. It's always a nice little uplifting way to end the episode. Anyway, that was the Secret Service with Errand of Mercy. It's a dream episode. It's you can't take them that seriously, obviously, and I think I would probably trade most dream episodes for any other kind of like normal episode. But as a dream episode, that was fairly enjoyable, and despite my reluctance to engage with it, I do find myself warming to moments, particularly the natives' reaction to the Unwinnies and the fighter jet sequences, coupling in that moment where, oh no, a Model T, what chance did we stand? But also a fascinating look into the mind of Father Unwin. The most important thing on his mind is his car and helping others. Which is, it's a nice insight into the character, I suppose. Not the greatest episode of the Secret Service, but I'm glad I saw it again, and I'm glad the Secret Service has finally made a long-awaited return to the Randomiser.
Doop 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 ba doo.
Here he goes.
Yeah, love a bit of Secret Service music, and love a bit of Secret Service, but a dream episode, come on,
it's old hat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very odd, flying cars, and in most Gerry Anderson shows that will be fine, even in Joe 90, but Model T Ford flying, goodness me, and slightly possibly insensitive depiction of some native characters which look interesting through a hindsight type of lens. But an interesting one. I'm glad the Secret Service is back, but possibly not the best episode to come back on. But now that's out the way.
Yes, exactly.
There's 11 more great Secret Service episodes to come in future randomizers at a random point.
The only way is up. But Jamie, do you remember when you actually had the time to sit down and do the news theme to the fugue from the Secret Service?
Well, it wasn't the fugue. It was only the hymn at the opening.
That's true, yes.
Yes, I do remember doing that.
Imagine having that much time in your hands.
I definitely do not have that much time at present. It's just crazy currently. As you know, there's so much going on. In fact, Richard, it's a phrase you don't often use anymore. But
what? Hang on, I can feel it coming on now.
You say it.
I think it's coming. Here it is. There's brand new Gerry Anderson stuff being made right now.
Yeah. In fact, I sent you some stuff yesterday, didn't I?
Hey, yes.
And you've been involved in several bits of it recently. Goodness me, there's so much going on. I can't wait for some more stuff to be out there and for us to be able to talk about, because it's very frustrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, well, that is the end of the Gerry Anderson podcast, isn't it?
Whoa, hold on there.
Pod.
I did say that we were going to head on over to our Facebook group, and I just want to read out a couple of things. No, sorry. So do visit facebook.com/groups/Podsterons if you want to join in. Elliot Webb, for example, says, I hope everyone is equally keen to finally see Firestorm episodes as soon as possible. I, for one, am incredibly excited to see a good old Gerry Anderson-style launch sequence. Yes, Elliot, plenty of those to look forward to, I'm sure. Robert Monk says, I just found the Zero X theme being played by the Shadows. Has anyone else ever heard this before? I think it's ace. He posted a link. And finally, a special shout-out at the very end of the podcast here to Rob Pollard, who, by his own admission, has been having a few wobbles recently. So, Rob, you're not alone. Tough times. Give yourself a break and realise that sometimes we all need a hug. And we all need a special friend, and they're there for you in the Podsteron group.
Absolutely, yes. One of the friendliest, most positive groups on Facebook.
Quite right, too. There we are.
Am I okay to finish the podcast now?
Oh, go on, you're raring to go. Who have you got on the line?
Oh, well, I'm interviewing Trevor Simon next, so I've got to get over to that call, you see. So,
yeah, of course. All right, yeah, sorry to hold you up.
And you've got the carpenter in, so,
yes,
and you've probably got other things to do, too. So should we just... Our listeners have got stuff to do too, so we should stop.
Yes, all right, we'll just go. Well, you're the one that's doing the talking, so
that's the end of Pod 104. Then fine.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Is it just the carpenter you've got in today?
Just the carpenter, yeah. Why?
No, I just wondered. And what's he doing? Skirting boards?
No, he's done some skirting boards. He's putting doors on today.
Oh, lovely.
So for the first time last night, actually, we had a bedroom door.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, privacy, Jamie. Amazing.
Me. Well, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get an office door to stop the dogs running in and out.
Absolutely you do. And calm down your neighbourhood cats as well.
Yes. Naughty, naughty kitties.
Aren't they just?
Anyway. Right, I'm going to go away and not kick the cat.
Fine.
The cat.
Well, I'll go and kick mine on your behalf.
I'll kick your carpenter. Okay. We're not condoning violence towards humans or animals here on the Gerry Anderson Podcast. And on that note, goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.